how's it going? It's the end of 2022. Still primarily a knife channel.
Until he finally hits publish on his OnlyFans.
So I'm going to do my 10 favorite knives at the moment. It's all sorts of knives, and they have to have been around for a bit. So I've got a few knives really recently that I really like. I got this knife's called the Russ. This is a really nice knife, a review of it recently, but I haven't had it long enough to say, yep, in 2022, that was one of my faves. These ones, however, been around for all at least 6 months, maybe even longer. And at this point in time, this is my 10. Very ruthless I was.
Yes, only 10 superfluous, poorly justified money pits were allowed on this exercise in the mundane.
No split decisions, no also this or no maybe subbing in this. You won't see any other knives apart from this 10 in this video. So let's get to it. First of all, let's look at the TRM Apocalypse.
TRC Apocalypse. Ass.
A giant piece of L-Max steel, very thick, robust, super fun survival knife. What's a survival knife? Well, it's a knife that you could use for basically any job to do it, somewhat well, passably so. And the main focus is going to be that it's not going to explode on you or fail on you during a situation where you might need to use it wrong. I think that's kind of how I would define a survival knife. So, really it's a hypothetical scenario that none of us will really truly ever be a part of with a little luck. But, it's still fun, brain candy to think about, isn't it?
Not to mention live-action role-play on the internet to justify impulse-bought mortgage slices.
I love the TRC Apocalypse. My buddy Chris sourced it for me and I bought it off him for... Well, these aren't cheap knives. They're quite expensive. But they're very well made. This one's made of really well-treated L-Max, which even on a big thick blade still lasts a good long time at the edge. Really comfortable, really cool most of all. And survival knives and coolness is generally sort of a pretty essential little coupling there. So very cool survival knife, the TRC Apocalypse. We'll go the other end now to what I think is the best looking pocket knife, the Alma Eagle. This is the heavy-duty Eagle. Still not a heavy-duty knife by any other standards, but from the Alma series. It's quite light, quite thin, very sort of light use, mid-lock back blade. I would prefer it if it didn't have the swedge, but it does. I was very lucky to have sourced this one from a mate, and I love basically everything about it. I like pretty understated looking knives. This one looks like a really, fancy little steak knife, the polished sort of micarta. It's AUS 8 steel, which, it's probably the worst steel out of all these, yeah, more or less. And it hasn't really been, hard used by me at all. It cuts a lot of fruit and apples and stuff up when I do carry it. So, for that purpose, the AUS 8 does absolutely fine. But I love my Alma Eagle HD. And it's definitely one of my favorites, if not my favorite, folding pocket knife. Let's look at now the TRM Neutron 2. The Neutron 2 usurped its bigger brother, the Atom, in my collection when I got one from TRM. This is about the perfect EDC knife, in my opinion. It doesn't have any of the idiosyncrasies that this one has that make me love it. This is pretty just all-encompassing, has a lot of good features in it that make it about the best. What's the best one EDC knife? If you ask me, I'd say try and find yourself one of these, because it's light, it's comfortable in the hand, it's made of a really good steel, it's ground really well, the action's good, there's, it's an American-made, knife from a good company with a good warranty, all that sort of stuff. All those things line up to make it about the best sort of generically recommendable pocket knife, in my opinion. Now we have something pretty cool. This is the US Space Force K-Bar. like it because I just think it's so silly that they would brand a knife like this with the Space Force, which is like a brand new, like high-end type of army, you know, like a military division. You know, fair enough that the Marines or the army, you know, just the basic land army that have used knives like this in the past, but I love that they just like, no, we'll just make it blue and make it sort of powder gray. Space knife. It's all a bit silly, but it's all good fun, and I like it. I frankly really like how it looks. I love the light blue. Like, no other knives really look like this, do they? Very, very cool. So I like the Space Force K-bar a whole lot. It will never leave my collection. It's, you know, I don't have too many collector-only knives, but this is definitely my favorite one of them. So very nice. K-bar Space Force knife. The DBK Bushcrafter arrived. It was about April this year. This is probably the best, a bit like how the Neutron's just the best outright, you know, EDC knife. This is about the best belt knife, I think. Unless you want to get something bigger. Size is going to be the thing that holds this back. This is a 4-inch blade. If you want a 5 or 6-inch blade, then, you know, fair enough. There's lots of other options, but this really did knock off what used to would have been on this list, was the Falcon even F1 or F1 Pro. It's better than Bark River knives. It's made by TRC, who are a pretty good knife making house. It's in LMAX steel. It's got the full sort of zero ground convex that Martin and Mickey, their creators, like. The DBK Bushcrafter, very sought after. I get asked if people can buy it from me many, many times, even still. So hopefully you guys are getting on the supply of these and getting it ironed out, because it is great. It's pretty basic, like it's nothing, they're not reinventing the wheel or anything here, are they? But just a super well done, sort of really durable, rugged, you know, survival-ish, but more just belt bushcraft camp knife. I like it a lot, so. Good choice, that one there. This one here is probably the most unusual knife on my list, but my love for it still has not faded. Now, this is made by Sandra Knives. And Sandra sent this guy to me. This is made of their tungsten carbide blade material, which is still the longest lasting edge that I've ever had on this channel. I'm sure that there are some steels that can probably challenge it nowadays, the stuff that Sean Houston's doing with 15V and Rex 121 and that sort of thing, you never know. But in terms of a singular product with basically unbeatable from the box edge retention, these guys are pretty cool. And I actually really like a lot of things about the knife. I like the sort of weird looking red handle. It's not conventional by any sense, but nothing about this knife is. It's actually got a unique lock as well. You sort of pull back this this sprung bar here. Reminds me a little bit of that new Cold Steel Atlas lock perhaps, but obviously much more lightweight. Really, a lot cool about this, other than just the blade material. Now, these Sandra knives are generally just a thin stock. So it's usually like a thin piece of stock with the edge put on it, and this one is the same, but the edge is like in a 2-stage this time, so it does actually thin out, and this does cut really, really well too. So the you know, as a blade nerd's knife, this is something that I find really endearing to me, and really love it being in my collection, even still. Next up, we've got my most used knife of the year, which is the Spyderco Stretch 2. They got the stretch and they took away that weird like elf foot blade shape they had for it, and they just put a pretty normal Spyderco droppy on there. This is like a Indela or Endura, but with a choil and a bit more of a bulky handle. So those things make it to me a sublimely usable knife, and I use it all the time. It's K390, which is probably my favorite blade steel as well. I would have used to have had the Police on this list, the Police 4, but this guy, it's a little bit more realistic. It's a little bit more wieldy, more comfortable in the hand as well. The Police 4 has kind of a weird sort of long ovalness to it that isn't as comfortable a hand feeling as this guy here. Stretch 2, definitely my most used knife, definitely one of my most favorite as well, so that's why it's on this list. Let's go, here we go. So this is my Spyderco kitchen knife, the K12 or the K11. the cook's knife, or is it the chef's knife? I think it's the chef's knife, the K11. Really, really good, and a real shame that they discontinued this. I think they fell out with the maker or something. Something weird happened, I'm not sure what it was. But they stopped making them. They made them for like 2 years and then they stopped. But this is my favorite kitchen knife because it's a bit more thick, durable. It's not for a great chef. It's not for a brilliant chef. It's for someone who just needs a good sharp knife in the kitchen. It's only used on food really, but then also it's sometimes used on packaging and opening a pack of batteries or whatever, because you're still rushed. When you need something sharp and you haven't got a pocket knife in your pocket, sometimes it happens, you still run to the kitchen drawer and you still get something that, you know, has an edge on it. And when it's this, the VG10 steel will hold up just fine. But generally speaking, it's just served us really well as a kitchen knife. It's probably in its 4th or 5th year with us now. I sharpen it probably twice a year. Still got plenty of blade left. You know, it's got a spackling of rust because we just chucked this guy in the dishwasher. We're horrible kitchen knife owners. The Corian handle hasn't shrunk or done anything unusual, which is a sign of good sort of construction. The pins are still all sound. It's done really well. Really long-term use has proven this guy to be a winner. Just a bummer they don't keep making it. I like it much more than their other sort of commercial knife options, that's for sure. I love this little fixed blade knife as well. This is from EDC Knives. Now he makes my favorite sort of handmade knives, Alex Strun. All of his knives have been absolute winners. This one is my favorite yet again. I've got a few, I've given away a couple. They always one up themselves. This has got like a fully rounded radius, like a stabilized burl handle, an S45 VN steel. It gets used between when I'm reviewing other knives, obviously, but another just great belt knife. When I'm not carrying this one, I'm carrying this one. When I'm after something that might be cutting up a bit of food or something, I'll generally take this one with me. This full flat, sort of very nice thin grind and very nicely stainless S45 VN. It's great and it's super comfortable in the hand. And I really like, he's got a really unique blade shape language, Alex Strong. I like a whole lot about his knives, and this is no exception. And lastly, truly we have gotten here for just no other rhyme or reason apart from the weird way I did it, but not my favorite knife of the 10, but definitely in my 10 is a Line Steel Thrill. So the Line Steel Thrill has sort of taken the place of where the Benchmade 945 was. I don't know, very different knife. It's a slip joint. It's made of the M390 on this guy. Yeah, it's got a little sprung pocket clip, but it takes up about the same pocket footprint. And basically, when I'm not carrying my stretch, because I'm out doing proper work, I'm either going to be carrying the Neutron, which is a pretty zero-sum game. This is just my favorite all-around knife. Or I want to be carrying something a bit more subtle or small. It used to be the 945, but I like this guy a little bit more for that job. Something about it being just a little, you can sort of, if you're getting a knife out in front of someone and you don't want to be all like, if you want to act a bit more like demure about getting your knife out, there's something really gangly and dorky about going, oh yeah, I've got a knife. Yes, there we go. And you hunch up your shoulders a bit and you edge up to them a little bit and get, oh, you want me to cut a little bit of your thing there. Oopsie. And that's how you're not allowed to hang around near playgrounds anymore. But no, seriously speaking, you can really downplay your knife use with this guy here. And it's got a couple of little interesting things about it. Namely, this little sprung pocket clip sort of pops out and pops in. So whilst, completely serviceable in the pocket, if you don't want to carry it in the pocket, you can just drop it in loose. And of course, you don't have like that pocket clip poking in your hand as you wrap your mitt around it, pretty good. So like a lot about it. And I also like the fluted sort of aluminium sculpted handle. It feels very Line Steel, but it is definitely my favorite Line Steel I've had. It hasn't got any of the weird problems that other Line Steels have had, such as the super thick behind the edge blades or the ball bearing systems that get a little bit gritty, a little bit quicker than I'd like. Line Steel's good company, and I think this is their best sort of generally appealing knife. Wow, 12 minutes, that's just over a minute per knife. I'm pretty happy with that. We'll see how this all lays next year. We'll see what I've got that's new. Maybe I'll get absolutely 0 new knives and it'll be the same video, and I'll just republish this video and just change 2022 to 2023. And that'll be that. So if I've done that, then cool as well. Hello, future selves. Anyway, that's the video for the day. I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.